It's story time again. My name is Phil, and you're listening to The Lip. Well, one more time. Story time. I think story time will be a fun episode this week. As you're going to be listening to this on February 21st, 2026. Turns out this is a perfect month. So every Saturday, you're going to hear one of these shows until next week, of course. It's going to be the end of the perfect month. And of course, perfect month means that it started at the perfect time in the week so that each and every week of the month creates the month. So the first day of the month was on Sunday. The last day of the month is going to be on Saturday. Exactly 28 days in this month, and each one of them takes up a slot Monday through Friday with no overhang. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of neat. Might be a little while before this happens again. So, kind of take a second to think about that. Excuse me. But of course, this is story number 46. And I will say this about 46. I was looking at the episode that I did last week about things that I love, and I saw that there was an opportunity for a story, more so in one of the things that I loved, and I'm going to bring it to you today. I think it makes for a better story than just to tell you that's something I love, because, man, when I tell you the story, it's just as fun as some of the other ones that I told in previous story episodes. And believe it or not, it's actually a story from prison. And trust me, I loved this story. It was a very interesting one, and I can't wait till you hear it. I think you'll be just as fascinated by it as I was to have lived it. Just in general, I think that story episodes are all fun. And this one, I'm looking at my notes here, and I'm not even sure which one I want to go first. But I think you would consider that I would start with the one that I didn't give you in the episode last week, but that's sort of a main event of the main event. So I think I'm going to wait for that to the end. I hope you enjoy this episode, and it's time for fill in the blanks. Well, what is the question for fill in the blanks this week? Well, if you're really paying attention for the last several weeks now, I've been doing a different setup, and I had a mic in front of me. And this week I have a different mic in front of me. The question for this fill in the blanks is, which mic am I going to stick with? The answer to this question is, I don't really know. This is the first week I'm using this one. I'm going to check the sound out and make a decision. But truthfully, I'm the kind of guy who likes diversity. I like things different when it comes to the show. As you can see, that ever since I've been changing up the way that I've been doing it, I've been using different pictures behind me. I've been using different stuff that's in front of me. And quite literally, the whole setup is different than it was before. And so I felt that why stop at just the environment? Maybe go ahead and do something different than mic. Turns out that I've had this mic for a little while and hadn't had the technology in order to use it properly. But now I'm at a point where I've got the technology to use it properly. And because of that, I'm going to utilize it from time to time, if not make it exclusive. And worst case scenario, I love Batman, as you all know. The worst case scenario is this one goes down or the other one goes down. Well, that's not going to stop the show because I have the other one to use. So, again, the question for fill in the blanks is which mic am I going to end up using? And the answer is, well, I really don't know yet. But here's something I do know. I'm about to ring the bell and begin the main event. Story number 46. I love it for a lot of reasons. Don't get me wrong, football is definitely my favorite sport. And I really enjoyed this season. Even though the 49ers were a little depleted, they still made a decent run. For what they had, they did pretty good. But keeping up with those football picks required me to do a show every single week. And as a result of that, it made it a little more difficult for me to write my other shows. Granted, I've figured out what I'm going to do for pretty much the duration up until mid May. But it was tricky because I had to really concentrate on the show at hand as opposed to the shows in the future. But I'll tell you right now, it is 11:52, February 10th, and you already listened to the Valentine's Day show, and I quite literally recorded that show about half an hour before I'm recording this one. So I'm sort of piling up a few, or as I like to say, or as they like to say, I'm putting one in the can for next week so I can sort of focus on the one that comes up after that. Because, truth be known, peek behind the curtain, I had to switch this show. Yeah, this wasn't the intended show for this week, but because I needed some more time to work on the other show, the best thing I could do was sort of stockpile a few that I knew that I had already prepared. So I just had to move a few, and that's what I did. I just moved this one up, moved the other one down. The one that was supposed to be aired this week will be aired next week because I'll have time to finish it, giving myself a whole extra week to work on it. That's the beauty of having this show. I can kind of do what I want. And knowing that that show wasn't fixed, wasn't quite as good as it could be, wasn't ready yet, put some tweaks on it and work it out, iron it out. It'll be ready on the 28th for sure. And I'm excited for that. But as for now, the main event is here, and I'm going to start with Maggie. My youngest daughter, smallest human that floats around the house. Now, this kid has a big personality. Very cheery, very bright, and I've actually, as some of you may know who have listened to the show, I've pretty much given 2 episodes to the wife and the kids. They've each had 2. Now, when she did her 2, Maggie was really young, like really, really young. She was maybe before the cruise. No, it was after the cruise. So she was probably around 6 for the first one and maybe 8 for the second one. But that's neither here nor there. She's older than that now, and she's definitely got a huge, bubbly personality, smiles an awful lot. An awful lot. That's what she does. She's a happy, happy, happy person all the time. She tries to be the center of the attention and the life of the party. She does that. Now, when it comes to getting her ready to go somewhere, it's a little different. She reminds me more of an old tractor trailer. You gotta have the glow plugs in to make sure that that big diesel engine is warmed up. Then when you turn the key, you gotta before it fires up, and then it takes a little while for the compression to work and the oil to move through that giant diesel engine, and then it slowly gets itself ready after a little while, and then it finally moves into gear, and then you can start driving it. And that's what she's like sometimes, all the time, getting ready to go somewhere. The words that could be associated with her when you're getting ready to go somewhere are give me a minute. Constantly, give me a minute. Give me a minute. Next thing you know, it's been half an hour. Give me a minute. And you're like, come on, what are you doing? Let's go. Come on. Give me a minute. And all this time, you're waiting, you're waiting, you're waiting. And then you ask, what are you doing? Well, I'm still getting dressed. But that was like 20 minutes ago. I made your breakfast, and it's like Steve Austin right now, stone cold. Come and eat. In a minute. Meanwhile, as I sit down and her sister might be there, or other people who are waiting for her, mother, we begin to decompose, waiting for this kid to get ready. And then it happens. She comes down the stairs, and she is still in pajamas. And you're like, what have you been doing all this time? I've been getting ready. I had to brush my teeth and get my hair set and put on deodorant and put on lotion. Sometimes I think to myself, she had to take the toothbrush, mold it out of the plastic, get some tweezers, and put each bristle inside the brush so that she could actually use it as a toothbrush. But she had to get each individual bristle and stick it into the toothbrush. And then she had to cut the bristles down so they were just the right length. And you know how some of those toothbrushes have bristles that are a little higher on the outside and lower on the inside? So she's got to measure it to make sure they're all even, so that the ones on the inside are lower and the ones on the outside are higher. And then she's ready to go brush her teeth. But now she's got to go and make the toothpaste. Got to go find the tube, get the fluoride, and put it all together and put it inside the toothpaste tube. And then once that's together, then she can actually brush her teeth. But then she needs the lotion, which means she needs to go and get some different flowers and grind them up and test the scent and make sure it smells right, and then she can make the lotion. You see where we're going with this. This takes a little while for her to get ready. Now, this day, particular day that I'm going to speak about, we are to get dinner at Burger King. And took her a minute to get ready. Gave me a minute. She had to put her shoes on. She had to find the shoes. She had to go get a coat. She had to pretty much um, knit some socks, and finally got ready. Now that she's got all these crazy things all set and ready to go. Oh, excuse me. It's way past my bedtime. I'm going to be a slug like that tomorrow, so that's what's going to happen, I guess. After she gets ready, we go out to the car, jump in, start driving down the road. She grabs my phone, links it up, starts listening to music, and we talk a little bit about some stuff. And then we finally pull up to Burger King. No line. Partially because the area where we're at and the Burger King that we went to is in a situation where it's surrounded by all kinds of other fast food restaurants. And I mean all kinds. Arby's, Wendy's, McDonald's. There's a hot pot restaurant. There used to be a Pizza Hut, but that was gone. Um, there's a lot of restaurants around there. There's lots of options. KFC, a lot of stuff. And so everybody went everywhere else except for Burger King on this particular night. We go up, and there's nobody there, so I'm thinking we're going to be able to just drive right up, get right to it, and be on our way. We sit in the drive-thru for, not kidding you, at least 5 minutes when there's nobody in line. Now, I know what you're thinking. Maybe there was a lot of customers on the inside and nobody was able to get to the drive-thru. Not the case. In order to get to the drive-thru, we had to drive around the front entrance, and there was 2 cars there maybe. I'm thinking at best they were employees. But there was nobody in the drive-thru line. And yet we waited for 5 minutes. And I was like, man, if you people weren't so bent on Burger King, I was gone. I was ready to go down the road somewhere else, anywhere else. But after literally a 5-minute wait and a little bit of change, I hear the speaker go, like, "Hello, can I help you?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am prepared to put my order in." Like, and I kid you not, the words that came out of her mouth were, "Give me a minute." I was like, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?" I didn't say it because she turned off the speaker so she couldn't hear me anyway. But give me a minute? We've been waiting here for 5 minutes. And you say, give me a minute? You want more time? I'm like, you've got to be kidding. And I just like, all right, you've acknowledged me, so now I feel like I have to stay now. I can't just drive off and go somewhere else. All right. And Maggie's sitting there next to me, and she's just quiet, not saying anything. Which is weird, because she's the real talkative one. And then maybe 2 minutes goes by. So now we've been sitting in this line for about 7 minutes to 8 minutes now. And the speaker goes off again and says, "Okay, what can I get for you?" And I proceed to place the first order. I think it was a large chicken fry meal. And you wouldn't believe what she said next. Or maybe you would. Okay, uh, give me a minute. Yeah. Said, give me a minute again. And I'm like, what is going on here? Give me a minute. Give me a minute. And she goes, large chicken fry meal. What drink would you like? And I tell her, Dr. Pepper, no ice. Okay. Silence. That was large fry? Yeah. Okay, give me just a minute. I'm really like, okay, so now at this point, I've ordered one thing and I still have three more things to order. And now at this point, it's 10 minutes in the drive through. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm beginning to decay waiting for this. And I've only gotten one of four orders done at this point. And so finally, she comes up and I get ready to do my second order. Now, I don't know if I should have done the second order the same time as I did the first. It might have made sense because the orders were the same. So, shame on me for not just saying, give me two chicken fry meals. But I didn't. And as a result, I had to wait another 2 minutes to place that order. So now we're talking like 12 minutes. And I've placed two out of four orders. Now, to make matters worse, the other two orders were also the same, but they're different. They were cheeseburger meals. And I had to make it a little extra complicated because one of them required onion rings instead of fries. And of course, guess what that took? A minute. So now we're looking at like 15 minutes. And I've finally gotten all these orders done. So between the 5 minutes of waiting before before all the orders were taken, another 10 minutes to get these four orders. So now think about it. 10 minutes. That's legitimately 2.5 minutes per order. So now we're talking a total of, like I said, roughly 15 minutes. And finally, we move up to go pay. And I'm up there to get ready to pay. And I catch the lady's name, and I'm not really thinking about it yet because it's all sort of adding up to me in my mind. Eventually, I go and I give her the card. She takes it. Like, okay, give me a minute. Another minute. Now I'm really distracted by the fact that it's been at this point about 17 minutes, and the drinks start coming out. And I take the drinks, and it's like it's gonna be just a minute on your fries, I believe it was. She goes, "We'll get you fresh fries." Okay, so that's another couple of minutes, and now it's like 20 minutes at the drive-through here at Burger King. And the craziest part is there's nobody behind us, so this whole time that me and Maggie are sitting here waiting for this Burger King, it's been 20 minutes. And I'm just amazed. But at the same time, I am not really surprised because, like I said, I took a look at her name on her name tag and I looked over at Maggie and I said, well, that explains a lot. And Maggie's like, what do you mean? It explains why this is taking so long. And she was like, I don't know. I go, look at her name. And she looks at her name tag and then she just puts her hand in front of her head. And then she goes, Dad, I can't believe you did that. The lady who was taking a long time to give us our food, like 20, 25 minutes at this point, her name is Maggie. So all I told the kid was apparently it's just what you people do. As in Maggie's. You just wait a minute. Give me a minute. Just take your time and just extend everything. But she was a nice girl and all, and she talked really talkative, but just slow. Very, very slow. Taking her time. And I just looked over at Maggie like, yup, that's exactly it. It makes sense. And at this point, she says to my Maggie in the car, says to the Maggie at the drive-through, huh, I like your name. And I'm like, yeah. Very similar name, very similar um, styles and personalities. These Maggies were just, that's what they do. They just take their time. They were very talkative, but that was about 25 minutes to 28 minutes to get the food. That was a long time for fast food. And the best part about this whole time was I go to leave and I get all the way back and I realize something. I didn't never get the card back. She was waiting so long that she never took the card and gave it back to me. So then I go back and I get the card and she immediately says, "Oh yeah, 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 yeah. It's your card. Yup. Mm-hmm." I drive up, come on back, and she goes, "Yeah, I never took it out of the machine." I'm like, "What?" So you're telling me that the card was just sitting there inside the um, the card reader for to take the money, and I'm thinking to myself in my mind, it's like it was still sitting there all that time, even after I dropped off the food and went back. It was still sitting there. Like, wow. So that tells me one of two things. Well, it tells me two things, not one of two things. It tells me two things. Number one, that she was busy doing whatever she was doing and just put my card through and pulled it out. It didn't pull it out, just left it there. Charged up, got the food, and left. But they were so slow as far as customers go that my card just sat in the card reader and it didn't matter because nobody was going there to buy anything. It was just still sitting in there. And I just thought that was just incredible. Like, how is this even possible? Like, how does this make any sense? But, well, it was Maggie, and we just had to wait a minute. Oh, man. Next, I'm going to talk to you about an ice cream heist. Now, the statute of limitations is definitely up on this, and this is a story that I don't believe I've ever told. But boy, it was It was special. Now, the sad part is, I don't really remember what year it was. It was either seventh or eighth grade. It feels like seventh grade. It really feels like seventh grade. But I'm not going to throw it out there and say eighth grade wasn't a possibility. But I'm thinking it was seventh grade. It was wrestling season. Um, Somewhere around the middle of it. So we're talking December, January, late December, early January. And we had just finished up practice. It was 4 o'clock. We're getting ready to take the buses home. Now, this was middle school, and the middle school was separate from where the high school was, but it was just down the road. Southern Regional High School and Southern Regional Middle School were in this, they still are, this giant campus. It's massive. It's really a big area. And the way it worked is the regular school ended at, I think it was 2:09. That sounds about right. And people got loaded on the buses by 2:30, and they were that was the first and original time you leave. It was the regular dismissal. And then there was 3 o'clock for people who stayed after school for regular detention or for basic after school curriculum criteria, getting extra help, whatever it is. Then there was another level of bus, which is usually the one that was for practices, and that bus came at 4:30. And with those group of buses, that's where you're gonna, like I said, those are practices where you're gonna have your basketball team at that point, and during the winter season, and the track team, winter track team, and the wrestling team, which I was on. And then there was a final bus, a 5:30 bus, last buses of the evening, and those buses would come, and that would be the end. Usually, if there was a wrestling match, you could catch that bus if you were right, and a lot of the other times, it would be for those sort of things, the after school activities like that. You take that bus if you were, say, going to a basketball game in middle school or something like that. But at this point, we had finished practice, but it was late. I don't know how or why. I can't remember what we did to be late. So we had a rough, long, hard practice, and we had missed the 4:30 bus. So all of the guys who were getting ready for their buses that were at 4:30, all of us missed it. There was one of us who got out early because, like I said, it was the practice was extremely hard, and it was a long practice. And anybody who's ever been to a wrestling practice will tell you that those suckers are difficult anyway. But for some reason, this one was extra tough and it was extra long. And we didn't get out until about 4:50. So we missed that 4:30 bus. And as a result of that, we now had 40 minutes to wait. And it's dark at this point in time because, well, it's winter. And it's cold outside, so we weren't going to sit outside for 40 minutes until the buses showed up. We stayed inside the building after we got changed, and we waited in the cafeteria, which was strange because There's really nowhere else for us to go. They wanted to shut down the gym so they could start cleaning that up. So we went into the cafeteria, which was, they set it up. They just opened it up for us so we can go in there. Now, is it the best idea that they came up with to allow 20, 12, 13-year olds, 14-year olds to just hang out in a cafeteria for a while, waiting for bus? I don't think it was the best idea. And I'm thinking, just based on my kids now, I don't know if I would want to leave them in a cafeteria in this situation by themselves, because I'll never forget, it was Robbie Anderson, rest his soul, passed away about 7 years ago now, 40. He decided that it would be a good idea, since we were just sitting there messing around, to check out the doors in the cafeteria while we were in there, because there's your main doors, and then there's the doors that would open up for where we would go to get lunch. Now, he opens up the door and he's like shocked, because why is it open? We don't know why it's open. Usually the doors are locked. And then while he's in there, he just starts messing around, and a whole couple other guys went in there with him, and wouldn't you know, they decided to check the containers that held the ice cream. Now, we had, during lunchtime, Jack and Jill's ice cream sandwiches and the ice cream cones, and back then they were super cheap. I mean, they were like 50 cents, and there was two big freezers full of them on two different sides where you'd have to go in to get your lunch, because there was two different entrances and two different exits. Strangely enough, not much different than the prison. Chow hall. You'd go in through one door and you'd come out the other with your tray, just like the prison chow hall, as I'm thinking about it now. Only the food is slightly better. Now, what he did was he opened up that door, and then when he went to do that, he said, "What the heck? Let me see about the ice cream." Sure enough, those Jack and Jill ice cream cones and ice cream sandwiches were in that freezer unlocked. And you had 20 dudes grabbing those ice cream sandwiches and everything that was in sight. It was insane. Total bedlam. And my goodness, some ice cream in there that we didn't even understand why it was there, because we never even seen it before. There was like half gallons of ice cream in there, which weren't ever for sale. So we don't even know what that ice cream was even for. But there was dudes who ran in there and they grabbed those plastic sporks and they were just chowing down on all this ice cream. And it was just insane, because you gave us 40 minutes to just run through the ice cream, and trust and believe everybody partook in something. And to admit, yes, even I had a couple of ice cream sandwiches, and two of them were those ones that used to have chocolate chips in them. They were really good. But I have to tell you, thinking about the whole situation, it really didn't make a whole lot of sense for us to do that. For one, we're just stealing all the ice cream, which was not good. And two, we were the wrestling team. And of course, the fact that we were the wrestling team, there was a bunch of guys who had to make sure that they maintained their lower weight. So as they were gorging on ice cream, not even thinking for half a second, yo, I still gotta cut 3 pounds. So let me go ahead and eat 5 of these ice cream sandwiches. That's a great idea. Now, I remember that really well. It must have been seventh grade because I wasn't starting. And at the time, I was wrestling, my weight class was 158. And I was maintaining a relatively close proximity to my weight class. I was no more than 156 to 157 most of the time. So it's like those 2 pounds I was able to flirt with, and I never actually got to 158 during the season. And the coolest part about that was that every year, like, there was a weird allowance, which was strange. But it's good because they were nice to you, which is odd because I would have thought the allowance would have worked the other way, considering that the wrestling season started just after Thanksgiving. What they would do is you would be strict at that weight class, and then in December, I think it was, or January, I can't remember what it was, but I know they gave you a pound for 2 different months, and I'm like, I couldn't understand that. I was scratching my head. Why did it give you any? Should have been less because you start off heavier, and then you have Thanksgiving, so you're gonna be heavier, and then you're gonna have to lose the weight towards the end. I always imagined that it just made more sense that if you the lower the weight should be at the end of the season, but that was hindsight, neither here nor there. But the idea that there was guys who had like to drop extra weight, and now they're gonna go ahead and eat all this ice cream, and I mean, some of them were. One dude was down in a whole half gallon, and I'm like, bro, you wrestled 145. You weighed in at 148. That's a whole other weight class above you. And you know you can't beat the kid that's at 148. So, you're going to eat half a gallon of ice cream? Why? That makes any sense. You're probably going to be 150, 151. You're going to be up to my weight class, but you're going to be small, and you still have to now drop 6 pounds in order to try to get down. And it was just hilarious because he's just like, it doesn't matter. Man, I'll never forget that because for some strange reason, even beyond what I thought, right? They didn't blame us for all the missing ice cream. And I'm guessing at 50 cents for the ice cream sandwiches, I don't know what about those half gallons. I don't know what that deal was at all. No idea what ended up being with them. Probably for the band or somebody like that. I don't know. But there was just a ton of ice cream missing, and they just for some reason didn't blame us. But I think that they probably blamed whoever opened the door for us, and at the same time was like, well, if the door had been locked like it was supposed to be, and the ice cream freezers that were in there were locked like they were supposed to be, this wouldn't be an issue. So I think that maybe that's how it all played out because the lunch ladies never locked the ice cream like they were supposed to before they left. And like I said, it was 5 o'clock pretty much when we were raiding that ice cream. Now, the last lunch of the day was at 1 o'clock. and everybody's done. They finished up, they cleaned up everything, and they were usually out of there by before the end of before the end of school. They were usually finished, and that meant that could have and should have been locked for at least 4 hours, but it wasn't. And boy, that was a heist and a half. Heist and a half. Now, speaking of illegal activities, I'm going to tell you a story about the prison. And every once in a while, I get to give you one of those. I don't like to use them all because, admittedly, I was only in the prison for 5 years before I had to retire, and I didn't have, well, I can't say I don't have a lot of stories. I will say I don't have a lot of stories that I'm willing to tell. That's a better way to put it. I probably can tell you a lot of stories, but truthfully, A, I don't necessarily think that I would want to tell them. B, I don't necessarily believe that you'd want to hear them. And C, I'm not exactly sure how it would be perceived on YouTube if I were to tell you some of those stories. Probably wouldn't go very well. So, the best way to avoid not having those situations is to not tell you a great many of the stories that I have about the jail. But when one or two come up that I can actually present to you, I'll go with it. And this is one that I can tell. And it's one that I like to tell. And I don't think I've told anybody this in a while. In fact, I don't know if I told very many people about this when it happened. But it was a crazy story. Um, I don't know what was going on this particular day, but let me just say it was before I was um, given my bid post in my hallway, corridor A. It's before that. I was still the observation, what do you call it, the psychiatric observation cell officer at this time, and I was not needed to be activated, so they put me on a cell block. And the cell block I was on was Delta Alpha or DA. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm the worst block officer in the world. Am I going to say that I'm like some of the other officers who've been around for a lot longer? When you'd walk on their block and there would be absolute silence because the inmates, with a combination of respect and fear, made sure that everything was level. Nah, I wasn't that guy. But was I the guy who let my inmates on my block hang off the walls and just pillage and rape? No. Somewhere in between. I kept a good balance. I really did. But on this day, the 124 inmates on Delta Alpha decided to try my patience. And I almost let them see me sweat. Almost. It was a long day. And it started from the very beginning. I walked onto the block and the officer that was on the block before me just didn't care. And I was the person who was working the second shift, the 2 to 10. The early person just didn't care that day. They just didn't. I don't know what was going on. Not my place to even speculate what was going on. But I just know that when I had to relieve the officer, that officer just didn't care. There was a lot of uncontrollable things going on, and it's now my shift. The first thing that I liked to do when I was running a block on 2 to 10 is I had a very specific pattern that I like to do, and it started off with me filling out my book. And that's where I always told all the inmates on every block, from the small blocks that I work on with 64 to the bigger blocks with 124, I told these guys, your day will be easy if you let me get my work done. I don't have to do a lot of paperwork, but the little bit of paperwork I gotta do, let me get it done. Don't bother me until I get it done. Don't ask for anything until I get it done. But when I get it done, I will get you anything that you're required that you need. I will answer any questions you may have within reason. And we're going to have a good flow to the shift. But if I don't get what I need, if I don't finish this paperwork, if a lieutenant or a captain comes on the block and it makes me look bad, I'm going to have a problem, and that's going to make your night a little more difficult than it needs to be. Because now I'm going to have to be tightened up, because I'm not a person who, when I was running my block, who would be overly strict and tyrant like. I would give fair concessions and respect for respect. You give me something, as in you do what I need you to do, and I will make sure that your night goes smoothly. Nobody gets written up. Everybody gets to do the recreation like they're supposed to. I get the block to run the way I need it to. Everybody wins. But because the scenario had already gone left before I even stepped through the door, typically, like I said, it doesn't take me long to even finish my book. And that's the first thing I want to do is my paperwork. It literally takes about 5 minutes to get my paperwork established in the beginning. That's all it takes. And then I start separating the mail, because on the second shift, the 2 to 10, Monday through Friday, mail comes. Anybody who's got mail, it can be delivered at that point, and I can hand it off to the inmates who get the mail. Now, I don't give mail out until the first count. Just what I do, my consistent thing. You give me the opportunity to do what I got to do. By 4 o'clock, things are going to start rolling, and it's going to be more comfortable, and things are going to be moving the way they're supposed to move. These dudes on this night were a very incooperative group. They were running in and out of cells. I had a difficult time essentially wrangling them the way I needed to wrangle them. They were getting off of the block when I would open it for one person, multiple would sneak out and come back in people would come onto my block when I wasn't paying attention because I was opening up the door and the other guys would bring somebody else in. And I was fed up from just not having it. Of course, the lieutenant came in, and of course, the lieutenant said, "What's going on this block?" Da 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 da. And I'm like, I'm triangling cats. The person before me didn't get it right, and now I'm trying to play catch up. And of course, by the end of the night, I I really didn't. There was a lot of stuff going on, and it was craziness. So finally, I brought in a few other officers to help me lock the block down at the end of the night because they were uncooperative. At that point, everybody's locked in. I'm doing the final count, and I told those boys, never again. This will not happen again. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to be way tighter than on the book. I will not be using the computer to open any doors. If I am on this block, you will have a serious problem. I will only use the key to open doors. I will shorten every opportunity that you have to do anything on this block. It's going to be that way. You're going to make me be ultimately strict, really strict. The answer to every question is going to be no. No matter what it is. If I absolutely don't have to do it, I'm absolutely not going to do it. Because you didn't give me the respect that I asked for, so you're getting none. And in my mind, I knew that, well, tomorrow, from that point, I could be placed anywhere unless, of course, my POC bid was activated at the time. Could have been in the A units. I could have been a utility, just walking around the jail, doing what needed to be done in the yard and other things like that. I didn't know when I was going to get a chance to get back to DA. But man, there was nothing in my mind except for wanting to get back on that block. And I am not a block officer by trade. I'm not. I'm not a block officer. Listen, I'm not the worst. I'm nowhere close to the best. But I'm not a kind of person who would prefer being on the block. I would rather be moving around more loose. But let me tell you how. I wanted nothing but to get back on that block the next day. And I'm going to tell you, in 5 years of working in the jail, I have never wanted to specifically work on a block. Never. But that night, all I could think about was, I want them to put me on this block tomorrow. And boy, it's going to be different. And back to things that I love for just a second. I came in the next day, and lieutenants all knew that I didn't really like being on block. But they told me, Delta Alpha, I had a smile from ear to ear. And they were like, not sure what was going on with that. I was the first one through the secure doors so I could get to that block. I got in there, and the first thing I said was, because that first period was simply phones and showers for the first half hour when I got there, which means the only people who were supposed to be out of their cells at that time were inmates who were going in and out from the shower to their cell, or they had phone time. So the first thing I did was I looked around and I saw anybody that was not on the phone or coming out of the shower. I said, get in your cell, lock in the door, put them all back in the cell. Anybody who was not on the phone or in the shower was in their cell. I sat down, I did my book, I got the mail, and I told everybody, yo, you're allowed to have the mail before um, you go into your cell. I'll make sure you're going to get it then. I pulled back from my normal 4 o'clock count to give the mail, and instead of doing it as I was doing the count, I did it after lunch. Well, after dinner, which was like 5, which means after they come back from dinner at that time, before they would have to come back to their cells and lock in before they would be let out, before they could go to yard. I didn't give them their mail until they returned. So it was an hour later than I usually gave the mail. Anybody who wanted out of their cell during their recreation time, they had to call me on my um, they had to call me on my desk, and I would physically stand up, walk to their cell, unlock their door. As soon as they walked out, lock their door again. Now here comes a jail term. It's called 10 on the doors. This is what we do in general. It's a policy that you're allowed to use, and it's for the most part, it's what they kind of want you to do, but you have the freedom not to do it. What it is during those times of recreation, when they are in the block and just doing their regular recreation time, the doors are all supposed to be locked all the time, always shut. And during that time of recreation, the doors will open for 10 minutes at the top of the hour, where the inmates are allowed to go move around, do what they need to do, get hot water if they want. But then during that 10 on the doors, they need to make a decision whether or not they want to stay out of their cell and be in the recreation or be in their cell. And when they go in their cell, there is no coming out. You stay in there until the next hour, when you have that 10 minutes to get out and you have to make that decision again. I made sure that they were on that 10 on the door. And to make it so much more difficult, what I did was, like I said, there's 164, no, there's 124 inmates on the block, and I opened every door with the key as opposed to the computer where I could have unlocked all of them at mass. No. So it took me about 10 minutes to walk around to get to everybody who wanted out. That's what it was. I tightened it up so bad that they were super uncomfortable. And at the end of the night, a lot of the guys who were giving me issues the day before, They're like, we don't want any part of this. No, we're not going to let that happen again. Like the way it was when you came in here the day before, it'll never be like that again if you're ever on the block. Because we know that this is what you will do if we don't act right. Yeah, it's what I'll do if you don't act right. And from that day forth, I never had a problem ever on Delta Alpha. Not one. Not one. Easiest block for me to work. And I just loved the idea that I was able to go back on there and say, yo, we're not going to have that nonsense. We're tightening it up. And this is how it's going to be. And they respected that, and they respected me for that. And let me tell you now that I'm going to ring the bell, or should I say, I'm going to slam the door on this episode. And main event is over. Okay, it's now time for the spear of the week. What could be the spear of the week? It's been a decent week so far. There's always something, always someone, always some opportunity or thing that just creeps up at you and makes you say, why? And the answer to that this week would be the simple fact that there's still snow around. Go away. Go away. The snow is the spear of the week. Now, it's time for the segment that we're going to do. We're going to just ask one of these crazy questions. And I'm going to give you my answer to one of these crazy questions. You ready for that? This is a fun one. There's a couple of these that are pretty good. But the one that I'm going to go with is a simple one. It's a really, really, really simple one. I just saw it a minute ago. And I lost it. I had it right there. Mm. No, this is killing me. This is absolutely driving me nuts because I had the perfect question and I had answered it. Now it's making me dig for another one. Hmm. That's, all these questions are here, and I'm so mad about it because I had a great question. Oh, no, no, no. Here it is. If you were the ruler of your own country, who would you get to write your national anthem? If you were the ruler of your own country, who would you get to write your national anthem? And for me, the answer is pretty easy. There's only one person who would write my national anthem to my country, and that is my birthday buddy, Adele. Her birthday is May 5th. Who would be better to write my national anthem than her? She would be it, no question. Adele writes my um, national anthem for my country, no doubt. But now it's time to shut down the show, and we're going to start off by asking you all to join us. There's always room for one more. Join us in the Lit Facebook group. Join us. Always room for one more. Um, I also would like you to check me out on Instagram at Philip Henderson 5102. And of course, I need you to like and subscribe this channel at Phil the Lip on YouTube. And now we're going to go for the words of wisdom. I think these are pretty interesting ones. I love these. These are good ones. Pay attention to this because it might help you. You can't destroy the demons in your life. All you can do is choose to ignore them. One more time. You can't destroy the demons that are in your life. All you can do is choose to ignore them. Plenty of people have demons. Sometimes drugs, sometimes alcohol, sometimes it could be anything. Those things are going to always kind of be there, but it's up to you to ignore the demon and get past it. It's the only way it'll work. On that note, my name is Phil, and you've just listened to The Lip. Time to go to bed.
That was easy.